We have in the studios with us today Dr. Wickrema Weerasooria, who is a well-known Sri Lankan, and of course he is no stranger to the studios of the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation, as he has been here and given many talks of personalities and public issues. Today Dr. Weerasooria is here to talk about an eminent Sri Lankan whose sudden death about 6 weeks ago took the nation by surprise. Namely, he is the late Dr. Saman Kelegama, the Executive Director for the Institute of Policy Studies, IPS. Good evening and welcome to the program, Doctor.
Thank you, Chandima. As you quite rightly said, I am no stranger to the SLBC studios. I have come here on many occasions to talk about great personalities of our country and about public issues. Today I have to talk about Dr. Saman Kelegama, who was the Executive Director of the Institute of Policy Studies of Sri Lanka. It was a very sudden demise, sudden death, which occurred when he was attending a conference, a SCAP conference in Bangkok. He had gone for the conference, I believe, on the 21st of June, attended the conference on the June 21st and 22nd, and on the 23rd, after the conference was over, he had retired because he was flying back to Sri Lanka the next morning. Unfortunately, he never came back to Sri Lanka, and his driver, who very devoutly waited for him at the Katunayaka airport, didn't find Dr. Kelegama coming to the vehicle in the morning, and he had contacted Dr. Kelegama on his mobile, but his mobile didn't answer. Then the driver quite rightly contacted the Institute of Policy Studies, and they had checked up with the hotel in Bangkok. The hotel had said that there was a do not disturb sign outside Dr. Kelegama's room, and the chain had been put from within, locking the room. So eventually they were forced to break open the door, and alas, they found Dr. Kelegama had died in his sleep and was lying on his bed. That was the way that this great man passed away. This was known to people who attended the funeral and who went to the funeral house, because they all inquired how this man who was there in Sri Lanka 1 week ago and was so active, both in the newspapers and in what he was doing for the government and the country, had suddenly passed away. It came as a rude shock to many of us when the electronic news spread that Dr. Saman Kelegama had passed away in a Bangkok hotel. Now, I myself contacted Dr. Kelegama when he was in Bangkok on this conference, and then here I am showing you in all sincerity, an email that I had sent him at 11 a.m. on the 23rd of June. I said, "Dear Dr. Kelegama, when you come back from Bangkok, I have to meet you on an urgent matter relating to the Institute of Policy Studies Endowment Trust." So I was emailing him at 11:30 when Dr. Kelegama had passed away that morning. So that is a personal anecdote of mine about this great man. Dr. Kelegama, by all standards, was one of our best-known economists of the modern times. And he was highly qualified. There was no doubt about his qualifications. He had a first class in mathematics from the Indian Institute, and thereafter he had an MPhil and a PhD from Oxford University. All this he had achieved by the age of 30. Born in 1959, by 1990 he had got all his academic credentials. At that time, a person with such credentials, especially an Oxford PhD, would have gone to the World Bank or sought a job in one of the international agencies. But Dr. Kelegama did not do so. The son of a very equally well-known Sri Lankan, Dr. Kelegama, who was a very senior public servant in the earlier period of life, Saman Kelegama decided to stay on in Sri Lanka. Even in Sri Lanka, Saman did not join the central bank, as many would have at that time, or the treasury. He decided to go into the Institute of Policy Studies, which had been set up at that time by Finance Minister Mr. Ronnie Rimmel. I'll come to that in a little while later. So having joined the Institute of Policy Studies in 1990, Dr. Kelegama was appointed in 1995 as the Executive Director of the Institute at the age of 35. And from that age up till 2017, when he passed away, he was its director for over nearly, 1995 to 2005, 25 years. It's a long time. And what did he do? He built up that Institute of Policy Studies. It was housed first in a small building at the DFCC Bank. Then it was moved to St. Michael's Road. And thereafter, Dr. Kelegama negotiated with the government and got a beautiful plot of land at Independence Square, just by Independence Square, on which the current institute stands. He put up a beautiful building, and I think the Netherlands government funded the entire building. So there is the institute today. It has one of the best auditoriums in my mind. I have launched 2 of my own books there at that auditorium, and I hope, and I'm going to recommend to the Board of Governors of the institute to name that auditorium as the Dr. Saman Kelegama Auditorium. Now, how did I get to know him so closely? Well, when he was the executive director, he used to send me the Sri Lanka State of the Economy. Every year, the IPS publishes the Sri Lanka State of the Economy. I'll come to that also again. But about 3 years ago, he asked me whether I would become the chairman of a trust. So I asked him, what is this trust about, Saman? And he said, we have about 450 million, almost 500 million or half a billion of donor funds given to us by donor countries, and I want to see that these funds are properly invested and that IPS will get a good profit, good interest from these funds. So he created a fund. We consulted lawyers and we created a fund, and he requested that I be the chairman, and I agreed, and the other appointed members of the trust are Dr. Lloyd Fernando, who was one of those very involved in the establishment of IPS in the early 90s, and also Mr. Maxi Prelis. So 3 of us, together with the chairman of IPS and the executive director, constitute the IPS Endowment Trust, and we invest the monies that were given by donors, donated to the IPS, and we give the interest, the profit, to IPS. So that was my involvement, and that was how I came to send him an email on the day that he had died, not knowing that he had died. Now, what about the Sri Lanka State of the Economy report that Dr. Kelegama publishes? Every year this is done, and he was a very humble man, Saman Kelegama. And in this report, which really was led by him, always led by him, he says this report is prepared by an IPS team led by Dushni Veerakon, who is the deputy director and now the acting director, with guidance from me, the executive director. And he gives, as the authors of this report, all the other senior staff of IPS. Now that is the greatness of Saman Kelegama. Greatly humble man, very educated, involved, and highly academically qualified. But this 300-page report, the Sri Lanka State of the Economy, which is put out every year, he never has his picture, he never has a message, and he comes out without any names as the IPS publication. Now, I learnt a little about the setting up of the IPS in the late 1980s or the early 1990s. It was conceived of by Mr. Ronnie DeMille and his staff at the Treasury, like Mr. Chandi Chamugam, Mr. Lloyd Fernando, and others. And they felt that apart from the central bank, apart from the Treasury and the Ministry of Finance, there should be an independent organization, like a think tank. The concept of a think tank was the IPS, and Mr. Ronnie DeMille led it and got the Netherlands government to support it. So in the initial years, Netherlands supported it, and they had the people all involved in IPS. Now, other thing that I want to say is about this man, about Saman Kelegama. I have checked up with the IPS staff, I have checked up with leading academics and leading professors, and what they tell me is that he was a very large-hearted and would never refuse a kind request either to chair a session or to attend a conference or to write a paper on any subject. It is hard to believe, it is hard to believe that he is dead, and to give a tribute to him in this type of radio talk that we are doing. Many pages will have to be written, and we are going to bring out a special publication about Dr. Saman Kelegama, and I am going to invite the IPS staff and all people who would contribute. There were many articles written about him for about 3 weeks after he had died, and one of the best articles that I read was by Sriyani Hulugalla, who had met him as an Oxford student. And Sriyani says, born to a wealthy Candian aristocracy, he was totally unaffected by his lineage and by his academic qualifications. He shunned popularity and kept a very low profile in all his work and what he did. He also created a place for young talent, which is missing today. We don't have that concept of training of youngsters by senior people. Whenever there were people who came from our own universities or from foreign universities and wanted to do an apprenticeship or to get some experience of work, someone invited them to the IPS and got them to do some work as research fellows, research assistants at IPS. He also took advice from many well-known people, Mr. Gamini Korea, Mr. Chandi Chamugam, Mr. Lloyd Fernando, and Mr. Nimal Sandaratna. They are well known, and they all respected him, and they were very concerned when at the young age of about 32, he became, or 35, he became the Executive Director of IPS. Many people, I know that, many public servants felt that he was too young, but now they all admit. In fact, I was speaking to Mr. Chandi Chamugam on the day of the funeral, and he told me, Wickrema, I was amazed with the way that Saman Kelegama built up that institution and brought it to what it is today. So everyone pays a tribute to Saman. Now, what were other attributes of this man? I have thought about it. I have consulted senior academics, and they say that he had an exceptionally sharp analytical mind. He was sharp like a razor blade when it came to dissecting something which is important and keeping aside what was not important. He had great independence and professional integrity. That's very important today. You can't bow down to the politicians and try to say yes to what they are saying. You must give a proper analysis of what is happening, and someone had that professional integrity. He was an excellent speaker. There was no doubt about that. He was lecturing at the Postgraduate Institute of Management also, quite apart from being a conference speaker and a person who could lead a public seminar. Even to students, he could be an excellent speaker and very popular with the PIM students. I have sat in his own lecture rooms, and I admired the way that he communicates very difficult economic ideas and concepts in very simple language. He could, his diction and the language was something unique to the man, and he could focus so well to the occasion and the participants and the audience, which very few people do. They come with a prepared speech and it gets lost on the audience because they are not focusing on the audience itself. He was highly read, and he would read the newspapers as well as the text, as well as the journals. I have been to his room at IPS and I am fascinated. There were books on the bookshelves, and whatever he couldn't put on the bookshelves because there were so many books, he used to have it laid on the floor, on carpets. And I was amazed at his room, one of the largest rooms that I have seen, but full of books and not of pictures and paintings and other things. He was very focused and very objective oriented. He knew what he was wanting to do and he knew how to put it across. He spoke to the occasion and the audience, as I said. There are other qualities. I was discussing this with senior professors at Sri Jayawardenepura 2 days ago, and they all said he is a good listener. Now, many top people are not good listeners. They like to put across their own views and bulldoze their own views through other people's views, but not Saman. And he used to listen to an argument, listen to a discussion, and then not intervene, not interfere. And at the end of it, he could distill everything that was said. I have seen those summaries that he had done because he was with me a member of the PIM, Postgraduate Institute of Management Audit Committee. There were 6 of us, and he was the chairman. He chaired the committee, and he used to listen to everyone at the committee and then summarize what had happened, and we used to admire the way that he conducted the audit committee as its chairman. And he didn't merely endorse what was said, but he distilled what was said and then brought it out in another perfect manner. So I can go on like this, Tanima, for many moments, but I think we must decide on what we should do for this great man to honor him. I have spoken to his wife and to his son, and whatever we can do to help him. 3 months even have not passed. So I have proposed to the Honorable Prime Minister that we should issue a stamp in his honor to commemorate the name of Dr. Saman Kelegama. We at the PIM, at the Postgraduate Institute of Management, are going to offer a gold coin or token every year for the best student in economics because he lectured to the students in that subject. We also want to bring out a special journal of our professional manager, which will be of about 150 or 200 pages, and I would expect all the leading researchers of the IPS to contribute, including the acting director. Then we also want to recommend to the IPS that they should have an annual lecture called the Saman Kelegama Memorial Lecture, and also put out a book about him together with the international agencies that he so ably led. I would like to give, in the concluding stages of this talk, he was not only Executive Director of IPS, he was Chairman of Singer Sri Lanka, and he was Director of the Sampath Bank and of the Colombo Stock Exchange. In fact, in today's paper of 11th August, I have seen an article by Singer where they have heaped a huge profit on their annual turnover, and they give a big tribute to Dr. Saman Kelegama, who was the chairman from 2015. He was chairman of many other public sector boards and policy committees. I don't want to expand on them: the Fair Trading Commission, the National Economic Council, the Presidential Taxation Commission, and the National Enterprise Development Authority, and Industrialization Commission. He was also on the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka, and for many years he was on the Postgraduate Institute of Management, both on the Board of Studies and the Board of Management. He was the President of the Sri Lanka Economic Association, and many academic achievements, editor and author of 12 published books, 30 chapters in books, 40 international journals, and wide subject areas including economic policy in Sri Lanka, foreign aid and trade. So we are talking about a man with huge achievements, and the greatest grief that I have is he died young. He died at the age of 58. The normal lifespan of males in Sri Lanka is about 80, and if he had lived for another up to that age, another 22 years, he would have been a colossus to this country, and he would have taken part in so many events. Whatever the government he served, he looked after the government, attended to their policies and helped them. He was never interested in public sector jobs as such. He would have been a researcher, a thinker and an analyst. And what Mr. Ronnie DeMel, the then Minister of Finance, started as a think tank in the late 1980s, I think Saman Kelegama gripped it and developed it to make the Institute of Policy Studies one of the best known in this country. I have brought the report of the Sri Lanka State of the Economy, and just to mention some of the things that it does, it goes through microeconomic performance, in international environment, the fiscal policy, the labor market, exports, Sri Lanka education system, healthcare, urbanization, and so on. It's about 300 pages now, each issue, and it has a beautiful set of boxes, list of boxes. Boxes are where each topic that they discuss is distilled in easy to read and easy to understand terms. Now, many people don't know what Britain's exit from the EU, the Union, would do to Sri Lanka. Brexit, they know. What will happen in Europe, they know. But how will it affect Sri Lanka? Now, someone has put this in a box, or IPS has put this in a box. And there are about 20 such boxes, which I found fascinating. Even the central bank report does have boxes, but I always looked at this report more than any other report to find out what the state of the economy of Sri Lanka is. So, Saman, wherever you may be, I like to pay this personal tribute to you as a great human being, a great loss to our country, especially to the Institute of Policy Studies. Thank you.
That was a brief but very comprehensive talk on the late Dr. Saman Kelegama, the Executive Director for the Institute of Policy Studies. I'm sure we have much more to discuss on the late Dr. Kelegama. Thank you very much, Doctor, for your valuable time and for your presence here and enlightening the society on a great personality of whose demise is a great loss to our country. Thank you very much, Dr. Wickrema Weerasooria,
for having me in your studio. Thank you.
That was Dr. Wickrema Weerasooria, an eminent personality, a legal academic and legal practitioner, the Insurance Ombudsman of Sri Lanka. And on this occasion, he also spoke as the chairman of the Institute of Policy Studies Endowment Trust, created by Dr. Saman Kelegama, who nominated Dr. Wickrema Weerasooria to be its chairman.